Well, dash cams today have proven more important than ever, with bad drivers on the road rage incidents, and of course, insurance fraud. It's a crazy world out there, and it's good to protect yourself with a dash cam like this one here from FITCAMX. We're going to dive in today. We're going to show you how this camera works, how it looks, and see how it functions in our F-150. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, stay tuned, let's dive in and take a look. All right, everybody, welcome back. So Paul here with another product review, and this one is from FITCAMX. Now, I've worked with FITCAMX in the past with an OEM style dash cam for our Ford Mustang Mach-E. Literally replaces a piece of plastic trim just behind your rearview mirror and gives you a camera built into that, easy plug and play, and just a few clips and screws actually made that process extremely easy. And so today we're looking at this one here that they're making for the F-150. Now specifically, I have an F-150 Lightning, a 2025 F-150 Lightning, and we're going to get this looked at today. We're going to open the box, take a look at everything that comes with it. Then we're going to jump down to the garage, get it installed in our Ford pickup truck. Now, of course, if you're interested in this product, I'll have a link down in the description below for this particular one. And of course, if you have a different year or a different type of F-Series pickup truck, they might have a slightly different listing. So make sure you take a look at their website. Make sure you take a look at all the different ones that they offer, because there could be a different model for your specific truck. But this one specifically is for my 25 F-150 Lightning, which is the same as just a regular F-150. And I have just the single front camera. I did not get the rear camera. You can get this in a front and rear camera combo. And this is just for the front camera. It is 4K. It does have HDR. It is a really solid camera for your dash cam needs. So let's go over the box real quick. As we can see, the front of the box, FITCAMX, has the 4K up in the top corner there. That's how you know this is a 4K camera. On the side here, we see that it has Wi-Fi connection, which is how you connect to the camera to offload video files from your camera to your phone. It's much faster over Wi-Fi than a Bluetooth connection. Loop recording, which basically means that your SD card, once it gets full, it will then go back to the oldest stuff and start overwriting that. So you never have to worry about clearing out your SD card once it is full. It's really nice. It keeps as much as possible on the card and then goes back to the beginning and starts fresh again. It has a G sensor in it. It means that if you ever do anything in the car that is shocking to the vehicle, which means if you get into, let's say, a fender bender or an actual accident, it will make sure to record that and actually save that to a part of the SD card that won't get automatically erased from that loop recording. So this way, if you ever have that accident and you go back to it a week or two later, you can be assured that that information, those video files, will still be on that card. Now, we'll also get into what you can do if you want to use this as a parking monitor as well. So let's say you park your vehicle, you walk away, you come back and somebody hits your vehicle. Well, how do you know who hit you? Well, the wiring will be a little different for something like that. And we'll get into that a little bit more further into the video. Super wide angle, you're looking at about 170 degrees of a wide angle for this, so almost perfectly, 180 degrees there. You're almost getting almost everything on your sides as well. So obviously you want this as center on your windshield as possible to look out as far left and right as possible, so this way you can see things coming from the sides as well. Perfect fit, which we'll see once we get this installed, and it, once again, HDR, high dynamic range, which gives you the crispest, clearest video that you could possibly see. Of course, another big thing as well is if you ever are involved in a hit and run, you want to make sure that you can capture details of the car, maybe people, or most specifically, license plates. So if you can grab a license plate very clear from a distance, that is really important when it comes to proving the crime. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Not too much on the back, just a bunch of stuff about make sure you turn off your vehicle once you go to install this. That should be pretty clear by then. Let's open up the box, dive in, and take a look at everything we get here. So we got this nice little separation here of dash cam and accessories. So we'll dive into this even more here. And we'll get the accessories box out. Let's get the dash cam box out. Looks like we got the user manual here at the bottom. Very nice. And let's get this all unpacked. I'm going to have this set up on this table so you can kind of take a look at how this gets set up. And then we will take a look a little further into this. All right, everybody. Well, you join me back here as we unloaded the box, and now we're taking a look at everything you get in it. So starting off, you do get that user manual. The user manual seems like it's mostly just setting up the application and basically the buttons on the camera, what they do, the functionality of the camera there. So we'll go over that in a little bit, but that's pretty much all that is. Of course, you have the option to get support with them if you need it. So they give you a support card with an email address if you need to get to them. Of course, we have some accessories. So here we have a small, looks like a Torx driver with a screw and some washers. That'll come in handy during the installation. And then, of course, we have this little plastic pry tool to pry off any plastic trim pieces that we may need. We'll see about that. So they also give you this USB-A and C ended SD card reader. So it's actually an SD card reader and a micro SD card reader. So in the event that if you want to, let's say, take out your SD card from the camera, let's say you don't want to transfer the files from the camera to the phone. It's too hard or it's too long. You just want to get the files off real quick. So you can actually grab the SD card out, take this adapter, plug the micro SD card into this slot here, and then you can plug this into a computer with either a USB-A or a USB-C. Pretty nice, actually. That's a good idea. I think it's always good to add an extra little flair to your product, and that's another way of giving people an option to take their data off of their cards. Perfect. We have the little pigtail adapter here. So right behind the mirror is a little plug. Now, depending on, once again, the type of system you have set up in your truck, you might have a slightly different version. This one is for mine particularly because mine has the plug behind the rear view mirror. You take that plug out, you plug this pigtail in line with it. So this would plug back into the back of the mirror, then this would plug into the plug that you took out of the mirror. So basically just a pass through here in this. And then this little guy coming off of here is actually how you power the FITCAMX. That is FITCAMX's really awesome way of doing things. So basically you just take that little pigtail there, that gets plugged into the pigtail on the camera. That's how you power your camera. So pretty decent way of doing it. Very easy, very simple. Once again, just plug, snap them in. You can figure this out pretty easily, this stuff. So, but anyway, that is the camera right there. So as you can see, you have this small pigtail for the power that goes down into the camera. On this side is just flush and flat. On this side, you do have the micro SD card that you can, take in and out of the camera if you need to. You can see the lens on the front, which goes pretty flush up against your windshield. And then on the bottom here, we have a couple buttons, one for taking a picture, one for turning the camera on and off. And then we have a couple of indicator lights as well that show you the status of the camera, whether it's recording or, probably getting connected to it. And then we have this little piece that basically goes flush on top. And then as you can see on this piece here, we have this hole that will have a threaded screw go through because this is how it mounts to your windshield basically. So in this particular case, because my setup in my truck has the screw that holds the rear view mirror to the windshield, you're going to use this. You're going to take that screw out, which is why you have the provided Torx and screw there. And maybe the extra screw is because the screw that's there is too short, so they give you an extra screw to replace. That's my assumption right now. And then you put that screw in here, screw this into this plate, and then when you're ready, you take the camera and slide the camera onto this bracket. And it basically just pops on. It looks like, yeah, actually just it pops on like that. So I don't want to do it right now because we'll wait till we get into the car to do that. But anyway, that's actually it. It's one screw. It is a couple of, plugs here, and then that's it. Your camera can be installed in literally 5 minutes if you know exactly what you're doing. So that is pretty much everything that comes in here. Weirdly enough, and I didn't know this comes in the kit, and I don't know if it comes in all kits, but I'm going to say it because it was in mine. I got this suction cup mount with the ball mount on the end, and like a cell phone mount thingy. This was in the box. I don't know if this comes with all of them, but I want to point that out, that this was in the box. So yeah, I don't know. I was confused as to why this was in there, and I don't know why, but yeah, it looks like they gave you like a little suction cup cell phone holder mount as well. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Anyway, this is what we got here in the box. Once again, the install should be pretty quick. I'm going to do the video right after this part of getting this installed in my truck, and just basically showing you should only take maybe 10 minutes or so, step by step, and we'll kind of go from there. So anyway, let's get down to the garage and see how we get this installed. All right, everybody, you join me down in our 2025 F-150 Lightning to get the FITCAMX Dash Cam installed. So I got everything in this box here. I grabbed my T20 Torx because we'll need that to remove the screw out of the back of the mirror, what holds the mirror to the windshield. And of course, we'll be most likely replacing that screw with this one that they gave us. And yeah, make sure we get this plastic piece up there instead. This is what's going to hold the dash cam. We'll go through all that here in just a bit. So anyway, let's dive in here. Let's get everything situated, and let's get you close up and take a look at what we need to do. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take out that T20 screw there. Now, they do give you that Torx wrench in the box, which is really nice. I'm just going to use my own since it's a little bit more comfortable to do so. But if you don't have a T20, it is included in the box. And of course, we do have this replacement screw here that they do give you with a couple of washers. And I don't know exactly if you need the washers or whatever. I'm going to put one on just to have it, just in case maybe there's a reason for it. But what we're going to do here is we're just going to take out this T20. Now, do keep in mind that your mirror will become pretty loose here, so make sure it doesn't fall. And we're going to just take that out. You can see how short, so let me get these two together. So you can see how short these two are from each other. So obviously they want you to have that slightly longer screw because you're adding, you know, this much plastic in there as well. But this is pretty simple. You just basically put the soft side of this towards the windshield. It's going to go right here lined up with that hole. So basically you just line up the hole again. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and install the longer T20 screw that they actually give you in the box. Now, I've actually tested this already, and I've noticed that the washers that they do give you in the box, in my particular case, I could not use the washers because it shortens the screw too much. So you actually have to put this in without those washers. So I'm not really sure what the washers are for. Maybe in certain F-150s, the depth is not as much. Perhaps, I'm not really sure. But anyway, so we just get this screwed in like so. Here we go. Hand tight. We're not going to use any power tools on something like this. And there we go. So the mirror is nice and stuck to the windshield. You can see that this is now pushed up against the windshield, nice and neat. And then the next thing we're going to do here is basically pop this off the back. So there's a small clip right here, which we're going to push up on. And this should slide out like so, very easy. And then this adapter, which we were talking about before, this is kind of the key to all of it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to plug that side into here, and then make sure you don't push too hard. You want to make sure that you get those pins lined up in there perfectly so you don't bend any pins. So we're just going to give this a second here to see if it lines up. There we go. We can snap that in all the way now, like so. And then we are going to put this side back into the mirror. There we go. That snaps in just like the original one. And now we have our solution for powering our dash cam here. And so we'll just make sure this is out of the way when we get the dash cam up. But now at this point, all we're going to do is we're going to take our FITCAMX Dash Cam. We're going to make sure we take the blue protective cover off of it because we don't want that to get in our picture here. We're going to slide this up like so. And we're going to make sure we get everything out of the way here. Try to line it up with that base that we've mounted. Let me just take a look real quick. All right. And this should be just like that. So now we get this nice flush dash cam to the windshield, and we should be pretty much good to go. We just got to plug our power in here. And, you know, this is a little bit of a thing where it's like you might have to work on trying to run these wires a certain way to try to make it look good and try to hide as much as you can. This way it doesn't look like you have anything back here, but we'll just, for now, we'll just do this. There we go. Maybe we'll hide that back here like so. I'll clean that up better. Maybe we could just zip tie this stuff together, make it look a little bit nicer, but that's pretty much what we're aiming for there. All right, so we got the FITCAMX Dash up there. Looks really good, nice and hidden behind the mirror. It's not something you really see. I think getting these wires tucked up and out of the way is not too hard to do. I don't think you can make it perfect, but I think you can make it to the point where it's not something you're really gonna see. I mean, I'm sitting here in the passenger seat and I don't see any wires hanging or anything like that. I really have to tuck my head around. So I think if you take a minute, you could probably hide those wires nice and neat. All right, so the next step for getting this FITCAMX working is to connect it with your phone. So you really want to connect it to your phone because that's where you're going to, number one, verify that it is working and recording properly, but also where you have access to it just in case you need to review any of the footage that it has recorded. So what you want to do is download the FITCAMX application onto your phone, iOS or Android. And then you're going to go in, you're going to probably have to make an account with them. I've already had one since I've had the Ford Mustang Mach-E one for a few years now. All right, so once you are in the app, what you're going to do is you're going to hit that plus button in the top right corner, or maybe if you didn't have one already, it might just have a button there for you to connect to your first dash cam. And then it's going to say install the camera and power it on. So make sure you start your vehicle because it's going to get power from your vehicle when your vehicle is running. Also for me, because it's hot outside, so I really need to have that air conditioning running. So then we're going to connect to it over Wi-Fi. So select camera Wi-Fi and connect. So we'll just hit connect Wi-Fi. You'll see a bunch of Wi-Fi devices around you. I'm sure you're going to get your home Wi-Fi. You're probably going to get your neighbor's Wi-Fi. Make sure you tap on the one that's car cam, and then it's going to ask for a password. Now that password should be in the instruction manual, but I'm pretty sure it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to click connect, and then we're going to wait, and we're going to connect to it as if it is a wireless network around us. Once we are connected to it, we could go back to the app and it should connect to the dash cam. All right, so we are connected to our dash cam, and there we go. You can see right out the front of the F-150 here, you can see that you get part of the hood. You can see that you get a pretty good wide angle here. So everything's looking pretty good. It looks like we're getting a little bit of choppiness in that camera, but that could be just the way that it's connecting through the Wi-Fi right now. Of course, we'll be verifying all of this over the course of the next few weeks of usage. And then, of course, we'll be finishing up this video with my final impressions then. All right, so it looks like we resolved our issues with our connectivity. You may want to verify that you disconnect from your home Wi-Fi if you're close enough to your house, or any other Wi-Fi signals that you might be connected to automatically, and maybe just turn those off from like a connect automatically standpoint. So it looks like now we are connected and we're good now. So we're going to go ahead and go into camera settings, and in here we can adjust a lot of the camera stuff here. So sound recording, I like sound recording on because you just never know when you want to record the sound around you. Better to have it, not need it. Video resolution, now once again, because this is a 4K camera, we can jump this up to 3840 by 2160, keeping in mind that the higher the resolution that you choose, the less that you'll fit on the SD card. Now, of course, you can always buy a bigger SD card and put that in the camera, your choice, but keep in mind that you won't hold as much on that card. Loop recording duration, so this is how big the files will be. So every 3 minutes, it will create a new file for you. And then after those 3 minutes, you'll have another file. And then after those 3 minutes, you'll have another file. So every time you download video from your vehicle, it will be 3 minutes in length. And that's adjustable from 1 minute to 5 minutes. 3 minutes is fine for me. I don't really need to worry about that. Exposure compensation, so obviously if you have some weird glare because of your windshield, if you notice some weirdness with your dash cam trying to focus on things, or if you get some weird glare in your footage, you might have to do some exposure adjustments on here. just something that you'll have to check maybe once a week, every other week, just to make sure everything looks good. And then once you get it dialed in, you should be good for the remainder. Time watermark, I always recommend doing that. You always have a watermark of your time and date, because if you ever needed this for a legal reason, you want to make sure that you can show that this is the video from that particular event and not just a random video that happened at some point in time. Collision sensing. So it will automatically lock the current video when an impact is detected. So collision sensing is not necessarily just for when you are parked. This is also when you're driving, and if you do get into an accident, it will automatically lock that data, that video footage of that event. So if it notices a large jostle in your vehicle, it will record that and lock it to a part of the card that is inaccessible from it being overwritten from the automatic recording thing. So you can adjust that low, medium, high, or just off if you don't want that on. Parking guard. So parking guard, once again, this is only if you've hardwired your dash cam. If you hardwired your dash cam, then the parking guard is something that can be very useful in the event that your car gets hit in the parking lot. While it's just sitting there, nobody's around to witness it, your car gets hit, your camera will turn on. But of course you need it hardwired for this functionality to work. So unless you get the hardwire kit, this will not work. And then of course you'll need to wire that into like your fuse box on your car in order to have your consistent power. You won't be able to use this functionality of it connected to your mirror there for the power. Below that, you can see the Wi-Fi name, Wi-Fi password, the firmware version, which I think they occasionally will send out firmware updates. And then that's pretty much it for settings. If we go back, we can see that we have camera file. So we could go on camera file, and this will give us all our previous recordings. And so once again, we see loop. So you can see we have multiple recordings here of how long we've been sitting here for. So we have 3-minute increment videos here for the last 20 minutes or so. Snapshot. So snapshot is if you want to take a picture of something, you can actually hit the button right here that looks like a camera. If you hit that button, it will actually take a snapshot of what's basically in the viewfinder. So if you wanted to take a quick snapshot of the license plate and you just wanted the picture and not have to download the whole video, you can do that also with that button. Locked, once again, if the car notices or if the camera notices that the car has been in such an event that it should lock that footage, like let's say you do get into an accident, it recognizes a G-force that's beyond what it's normally used to, it will lock that footage into this section of the app. Once you go in here, you'll be able to pull it down from that section of the SD card. And then parking, once again, if you have the functionality of it hardwired, you can use the parking stuff. This will show you all the events from when the car was parked and if something were to happen while it was parked. And that's pretty much the entire app. It's a very simple app. You have some controls up here where you could take a picture or stop and start your recording session. You could do a lot of that stuff from here as well, so it's kind of nice. You can even flip the picture to take a look at it from a bigger angle, so this way you can take a look at it. And once again, we're going to play with this for the next week or two, and then I'll sit down and kind of go over the footage with you, and we're going to take a look at how things look. We're going to take a look at how clear some license plates look, or take a look at some signs and see how things look from a clarity standpoint. Now keep in mind that once again, we set this to 4K resolution. So it was by default 2560 by 1440. We bumped it up to 3840 by 2160. So we are going to have that full 4K functionality now. So that is where we're going to see our best quality, our best video recording, and of course the clearest possible picture. All right, so let's give this now a couple weeks. If I come across any events that are kind of interesting over the course of me driving the truck over those couple weeks, then I will make sure I'll put those in the video. But let's jump to the next clip, which will be me discussing what we found out about the FITCAMX for your F-150. All right, everybody, you join me now here in the studio to talk to you about the FITCAMX for my F-150 Lightning. So we've had quite a few weeks now of utilizing it in our F-150. We even just recently went on a road trip with it, and so I kind of want to talk about some of the footage that I've pulled off of it and talk about what it looks like, how it looks, does it look good, just things like that, and just an overall impression. So as I talk here about my experience with it. I'm going to throw some B-roll footage in as well for you to take a look at, so you can kind of get an idea of exactly how the FITCAMX works. So now, first things first is I want to put this out there, is that we are recording in 4K with the FITCAMX. As you saw previously in this video, I did have to set that in the settings because it was in like a, I think it was at 2K, I think is what it was at originally. I bumped it up to the 4K. So we were recording in full 4K here. So the quality you see could vary depending on the setting you choose. But since it is a 4K dash cam, it's always best to use it in its highest quality. Now, of course, keep in mind that the dash cam comes with a 64 gig SD card, micro SD card, but you're going to be limited as to how much video you can store on the camera or on that micro SD card because of the extra size of the files, because it's in 4K. But of course, keep in mind that it just loops back and overwrites the old stuff, so therefore, you know, you're not going to be missing out on anything unless you wait too long. Well, then you could be missing out on some older stuff. Now, of course, you can always upgrade to a 256 gig micro SD card, which I believe is what it recommends as its maximum capacity. So keep that in mind, that you could, if you are not getting enough footage, you can go and buy a bigger card and have that installed. But the footage I'm going to show you is in 4K, and I'm going to kind of show you in a few different scenarios of exactly how it looks, but also how you can see some clarity with some of the footage here, and kind of give you an idea of how far can you see like a license plate, let's say. And so I kind of want to go over some of that stuff. So let's dive into that. So some of the footage you're going to see here is based on, you know, just driving around middle of the day, nice and bright outside. You're going to see some footage of cars going by, and you're going to see that it looks very, very clear. Now, of course, if we go in and we zoom in and try to read like a license plate, you're going to notice that it starts to get a little bit more difficult to see those license plates the further out that you go. Now, of course, that obviously makes a lot of sense, but the idea is that if you ever needed to catch a license plate on video, you want to make sure you can do that. So based on what I can see after zooming in on some of these videos, is that you are getting a pretty decent clear shot of a license plate if they're a couple car lengths ahead of you. Once you get beyond that length, you do start to have some issues with making out some of the letters and numbers on a license plate. So hopefully, if you ever need to grab a license plate, you were at least within a car or two lengths away in order to get a pretty clear shot of that license plate. Now, of course, this is just doing some basic zooming in. We're not trying to do any, you know, post-processing on the video or on the picture to try to clear up the numbers and the letters of a license plate. So obviously there could be other things you could do to enhance the video or the picture or whatever you get out of that zoom in to try to get that license plate a little bit clearer. Now, of course, if you're doing this for a legal sense, like let's say an accident or you witnessed something and you want to turn in this footage, the police might have a better idea of how to get some better clarity on some of those shots. So keep that in mind. But overall, I got to say that the picture looks really clear. It's very nice to have a good clear picture. We don't really see any major reflections off of the windshield since the lens is so close to the windshield. So that's also very nice. Keep in mind that if you have any type of weirdness like that, they do have a polarization filter you could buy as well. You could throw that onto the lens, and that will help with some of that distracting polarization issues you might have. So if you get some weird glares off your windshield or anything like that, there is a film or a lens that you can put over this to assist with that type of view. So everybody's going to have a different experience based on the time of day, the type of windshield you have, everything like that. There's going to be some variances there. Now, some of the other footage I'm going to show you as well is in the rain. So as you could see, you know, driving in the rain, everything looks pretty good. Obviously, the camera gets covered up when the rain hits the windshield. The wiper comes by, it moves the rain out of the way, and then you get a good shot again until the rain basically covers up the camera again. This is obviously very normal to happen. There's nothing you can really do about that. But as long as you keep your wipers on, it will continue to get a pretty decent picture and it doesn't look like it blurs out. It doesn't look like it loses focus at all during the rain and then the wiper coming by. It seems like it has a pretty strict focus kind of setup, so it's not really like it's changing focus as this is happening, which is kind of what you want. And so the clarity of that looks pretty good. Now, as far as nighttime shots, now you can see that nighttime is actually pretty good. It does have like a nighttime mode, so it does have some sort of way that it can enhance outdoors during the nighttime, and it has a way to give you a clearer picture of the outside when it's actually dark outside. So it does have pretty good way of filtering that as well. And I've had experience with FITCAMX products in the past. We've had this in our Mustang Mach-E for quite a few years now, and though we never really had to use it all that much, there are occasions that I have had to jump in there, download the footage off the car, and grab that stuff, and it's always been a pretty seamless experience. Now let's talk about that in this case as well. So in order to get the footage that you were seeing, we basically had to jump into the car, connect our phone to the camera over Wi-Fi, just like we did initially. And then once we were connected, we were able to download the footage over a Wi-Fi signal. Now, a couple things that I want to mention here is that if you are trying to download these files and you're within range of your home Wi-Fi, or really any Wi-Fi that your phone automatically connects to, I highly recommend going into your settings and disabling auto connect, because what happens is a lot of times your phone will say, oh, I connected to this camera, but the camera has no internet, so we're going to find a better source, and then it jumps back to another source for internet. And so I noticed that if you're trying to download footage, it tends to continuously try to jump back to another internet source. So that might be something to keep in mind as well, is to turn off auto connect to your Wi-Fi access points at home if you're trying to pull the footage in your driveway or in your garage, as that might get annoying after a while. Another thing I noticed is that the file sizes come in at about 500 megs, give or take a little bit, and it downloads at least a few minute video in 4K, of course, in those 500 megabyte plus files. So I downloaded multiple files, and it takes probably at least 3 to 5 minutes per file download. At least that was my experience. So if you're going to download 3 or 4 clips, you're probably going to have to wait about 15 to 20 minutes to download those 4 clips, give or take. Not a big deal. Once again, this is not something you're going to be doing a lot or very often, but it is something to keep in mind. Now, of course, you always have the option of taking the micro SD card out of the camera, putting it into the adapter that you do get in the box, plugging it into a laptop, and then you can just click and drag the files off the micro SD card if you wanted to do it that way instead. I think both ways are dependent on what you have access to. Obviously, if you're out someplace and you don't have access to a computer, using your phone to download the footage is a great idea. But of course, if you want the convenience of being able to download it quicker, you can always just take the card out, run into your house, take the footage off it, put the card back in your car, and you're good to go. Now, of course, make sure you put the card back in your car, because you don't want to forget that, and then you won't be recording anything onto that card. So just keep that in mind, not to forget the important part of that. Now, as you could see, the install for the FITCAMX and the F-150 was very simple. In my particular case, it was one screw that unlocks the mirror assembly. Basically, you basically slide this assembly on, put the camera attached to it, put your mirror back, plug, 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 and you're good to go. Pretty seamless and easy solution there. But keep in mind that once again, you're not going to get any type of solution for when your vehicle is parked and off. So if you're looking for like a coverage for when your car is sitting in a parking lot, like for instance, if you were to get hit by another vehicle and you want it to turn on and record that, you're not going to have that with this solution. What you would have to buy is a hardwired solution, and FITCAMX does offer this, so you can actually buy this hardwired solution that plugs into the camera, and then you have to run it to your fuse box on your vehicle. Now that gives you access to basically a 24-hour mode, and what that means is that your camera will be basically drawing some power but staying in the standby mode. It won't record 24 hours. But what happens is, in the event that your vehicle gets bumped or moved, or if it does get hit by another vehicle in a parking lot, it will turn on and record. Now, of course, these types of features are even better if you have both cameras, front and rear. Now, in my particular case, I just had the front camera. I didn't go for the rear camera, but you can actually jump in and get a front and rear assembly, and then you would just have to run that cable around to the rear camera. So there would be a little bit more installation if you were to do that. They also make a camera that is not quite 4K. I believe it's a 2K. I do not recommend going less than 4K, because as you can see from some of the footage, that a 4K gives you just barely enough quality and clarity to grab the small details, the license plate numbers, details of the car, things like that. So I highly recommend, if you're going to look into getting one of these FITCAMX, go for the higher end, go for the 4K one. And of course, if you do get one that has the front and rear camera, make sure you get the one that's 4K front, and I believe it gives you a 1080p option for the rear. But overall, I gotta say that the FITCAMX has once again been a really nice solution for a dash cam for your vehicle. It stays out of the way of being able to block your view outside the windshield. So just by sitting in the driver's seat and looking forward, you do not see a dash cam. And that goes for not only the F-150, but also our Mach-E as well. Both solutions have been really good for us. And so I wanted to thank FITCAMX for sending this product out for review. Of course, if you are interested in this product, you can take a look down in the description below, where I will have a link to this camera for your convenience. Anyway, thanks again for watching today's episode, and I really appreciate it. And of course, we will see you on the next one. And remember, welcome to the future. Welcome to tech motoring. We'll see you soon.